place where I thought my dreams would come true became the very place of failure, as low self-esteem sneaked its way into my college experience. It was during these struggles that I met two women who were visiting the campus, and they introduced me to Jesus using the familiar yellow booklet. I was really confused when I was reading through that. I was doubting if God truly loved me and if I was really worthy of that love. How could God love me when I didn't even love myself? So, seeking answers, I attended Bible studies and began reading scriptures attentively for the first time. God's narrative about who I was began to change my negative self perception. Now, changing the deeply ingrained negative thoughts, all the things that I was telling myself, it took intentional time and effort. And so, after 4 months of seeking Him, I remember sitting in an empty classroom. And in that quiet classroom corner, I was so moved by His love and acknowledging that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I surrendered my life to Him and I became a believer on February 10th, 1990, through prayer. Now, standing on the other side of transformation, I really appreciated the quiet and patient support of the two women who walked alongside me during that challenging period. Their encouragement played such a crucial role in my life that I had really admired how they had walked alongside me because it had led me to discovering purpose, identity, and worth. And I wanted to extend the same support and empowerment to others. So I became a student leader on my campus, sharing the gospel with my fellow students, listening to their stories, and learning together. Later, I would find out that God was giving me hands-on experience to continue speaking into the lives of other people. And I received His calling when I didn't even think I was capable of serving full-time. My first response was, me? I don't think I'm suitable for this kind of thing. The idea of serving full-time felt like a very distant concept, and it was so incompatible with the plans I had for myself. Then I heard God's voice speak so clearly and audibly to me in 4 simple words. And He said, Romila, I need you. And the Holy Spirit impressed on me that God has spoken, and that was it. My next response was, okay, Lord, I'm there. And that was 32 years ago when I answered the call. It is true that personal struggles and challenges that can challenges can really evolve into deep-seated passions and priorities in your life. Through my own journey and experiences, I've come to recognize the profound impact women have on each other's lives. And this realization has led me to become passionate about inspiring and empowering women, encouraging them to know God, recognize their inherent worth, and embrace their true identity and purpose in Him. Whether interacting with young women on campus or in the corporate world, or during conversations and coaching sessions with my female colleagues, I am grateful for the privilege of standing alongside other women, offering encouragement and support. I praise God for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's my story. Thank you.
Romila, that's so beautiful. And I just thank you for being vulnerable and transparent and also for the hope that it displays because of growth, how you've changed and how you've taken something that was difficult in your life and God is using it now to be a wonderful gift for other women in your life. It's just so encouraging to hear that. For you. It says, when you look back at that freshman girl today that you were, what do you feel about her, and what would you say to her? That's a deep one.
Well, I do believe that all my struggles during that time have led me to where I am today. And it was so important for me to find the passion and the purpose that God had placed in my life. And had I not gone through that, I probably would not have been so passionate. Had I not heard God, I mean, even when the calling was so audible to me, but because here I am sitting and there's this call for full-time ministry, who's going to take up the challenge? And I'm saying to God, oh, well, God, you don't need someone like me. I don't think I'm suitable for this. And that's what I was thinking. And I heard God. And this is the first time in my life I'm hearing God. And because I just heard these words, Romila, I need you. And I know that if God had not spoken to me that day and the Holy Spirit had not impressed that on my heart, that He is the one who's calling me, I wouldn't be in ministry, or I would have left long time ago, had I not really had that confirmation of calling. And so I believe, when I go back, I would really empathize with myself. Definitely, I would walk alongside myself in my struggle. I wouldn't not want to have struggles, because the struggles are what made me who I am today. And I praise God.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Rama. Yeah, definitely an opportunity to encourage others to not be afraid of the struggles and the pain, because God can use it in really great ways. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. Thank you.
We're going to move on to number 2, and that's going to be Luda. Luda was born and raised in Central Asia, and she came to Christ through Athletes in Action while playing basketball. So we've got a basketball player in our midst. She joined AIA 11 years ago, and for the last 4 years, she's been serving in the role of LDHR in Central Asia. So she is great at coaching people and providing resources and space for people to grow and thrive. I know this personally because she did a major portion of translating the 4 mindsets and behaviors courses we have into Russian before there was even an opportunity to do it online. She had taken it and translated it in order to offer those resources to people in her area. So she takes initiative and does things to empower and resource others. She brings energy and passion into everything she does. So I can't wait for you to hear Luda's story. Luda, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. And it's such a privilege for me to be here. I think when I talked to Terry, I was like, well, why me? Like, what am I doing here, really? But I think it's just such a privilege to be a part of this group of women who are, sharing stories today, and share a little bit of my story. So as Terry shared, I'm an athlete, came to Christ, came to ministry through Athletes in Action, through basketball. Very thankful for it. But for the past 4 years, I've been doing LDHR and been loving it. I really didn't want to go into LDHR in the first place. I was really opposing that call and wrestling with the Lord. But as I look back, I wouldn't have chosen a different path. I feel like God has He's grown me a lot, and He's given me lots of opportunities to use my gifting. And so I love to do what I do. And I think LDHR in some way has become my niche, but also my comfort zone in the country that I serve. Things that God is doing right now, I think He's leading me out of that comfort zone. Again, it's not something that I have chosen myself, but it's something that God is leading me into. And so a year ago, in February, I would describe my story something like of Moses, when he was tending the sheep of his father-in-law. He led them to the Sinai mountain, and there he was just amazed by this burning bush. And there the Lord just spoke to him and said, Moses, you know, this is the holy ground, and I have a calling for you. You know, I heard the cry of my people, and I want to send you to help, to lead them out of Egypt. And so for me, that was something that I faced. I was just tending my sheep. I really, I really love my sheep in Kazakhstan. Sometimes I tell them, you know, like we laugh. But I love to, you know, like I love to provide resources. I love to provide coaching. I love to serve them through different processes and trainings, and just be with them, just to provide care that they needed, to listen. But then in February, I was at this conference for national team leaders, where we had national team leaders from our new region. It was after reorganization. And there were two regions that were merged at that time, the Central Asian and the North Africa and the Middle East. And I remember the first day when I walked into this big room and I saw the Arab world, and I was just amazed. It was just like a burning bush for me. I was like, who are these people? What is this language? You know, why are they so beautiful? You know, like what, you know, why am I so attracted to them? And later the Lord he spoke to me and he said, that's where I'm calling you. But before that call, actually, that happened a little bit later, he just gave me that compassion for the people. For that region in particular, as I read specifically about one country in the Middle East that I started hearing about. One of the things that, you know, like my friends know about me is that I love food. And so one time at that conference, I shared with people that, you know, like that's something, it was like a finance kind of a training. And people asked, like, what do you spend money for, you know, like without even thinking? And I said, food. And so someone told me, you have to come to Lebanon because our food is the best. And I'm like, oh, Lebanon. I knew a little bit about Lebanon, but not that much. And so I Googled, I read the history, and just as I read it, that's when God gave me that compassion. I'm like, how did they endure so much and still standing and still going strong, you know, like, and still try to overcome so many things. And I knew that that compassion wasn't for me. I'm not a very compassionate person. I'm more like, you know, like, let's fix it. You know, okay, I heard you. I know it's hard. Let's fix it. Let's move on. And so I knew it wasn't for me. So I was like, Lord, why is this compassion? So I went back home, continued to do my thing with LDHR back in my country, until this one time God gave me a dream. That's something the way that God speaks to me. But this year, I was just blown away by so many dreams. But I will tell you this one dream because it connects to the story a lot. I was walking up the hill. It was hot, and I'm struggling. And I see people around, and it's the people from different people from the campus ministry. And I was like, that's interesting. Why are these people here? And as I walk up, I see two figures, men figures coming at me. And at first I didn't really know who they were, but as they approached, I saw that they were in white. And I realized those were angels. And one of them gave me a message, something about the ministry, but I really didn't understand the message because I asked a different kind of question that they responded to, and I woke up. But I was confused with the dream, and I'm like, I wrote it down in my journal, but I still wasn't sure what that was. And so I talked to different people about like Lebanon, and you know, like people start going to Lebanon because Lebanon was open now for our bigger region for different trainings, and people gathered and there, you know, like there as well. And so I was like, well, Lord, when I will get a chance to go to Lebanon, I would really like to try their food, and I want to see the country because I saw pictures. It's beautiful. And then one of the actually campus staff came up to me and said, "Oh, we're having this training in Lebanon in August of 2023. it would be great if you would come. And I'm like, how in the world will I come? I'm not SLM, I'm not at campus, unless somebody invites me. And that was it. So that was April. June, I get an invitation to this training to go to Lebanon. And I look at the list of invitees, and I see two regional people, and I'm like, like Romila, I asked the same question: why me? Why am I on this list? God knew, I guess. And both of them could not come. So I emailed my leaders, and I'm like, can I come? And say like, yeah, like you can go. So I was able to go, and I was there, and it was just a great. And I actually had that expectation, like very high expectations of Lebanon, and I was really afraid that I will be disappointed when I come. But like when I came, Lebanon exceeded my expectations. I was in love. It wasn't just compassion, but God just gave me love for the country. And so, but there was one day, I think after I led a session, I went for a walk, and I was going back to the hotel. I was going up the hill. It was hot. It was hot. And so I'm walking, I'm struggling. I was like, Lord, why is it so hot? And then the first time I think I realized that hotel was on the hill. And it was actually later when I came back home, as I was looking through my journal and I read the dream, and I'm like, it was about Lebanon. Because there, like as I came to Lebanon, I also talked to the staff there, and they shared about their need. And as they shared about the need, my heart was just like, like God was saying to me, I hear their cry. I want you to help. And so I was just, okay, Lord, I feel like you're calling me to Lebanon. But now I need to talk to some people. I cannot just go. So I talked to my leaders. And as I came back, it was already September. And I remember I was praying, I was like, Lord, if you're calling me, I know you gave me these feelings and emotions towards Lebanon, and you gave me dreams. I want you to confirm it through the word. I want a really confirmation from the word. Please give it to me. So I meet with the national team to tell them about this calling. And as they pray for me, like I started like, guys, I'm in love. They're like, ooh, and I'm like, with Lebanon. They're like, oh, okay. But they were excited for me. They said that they would let me go, but it'd have to be next September. And then after they prayed for me, our national leader, he picks up his phone to look in the Bible. He said, as we prayed, God gave me a verse. And he reads Exodus 33 when Moses talks to the Lord again on the mountain. And he says, you called me to lead these people, but you didn't tell me who's going to come with me. And the Lord says, I'm going to go with you. And Moses says, if you're not going with me, I'm not going to go. And the Lord says, I will go with you, and I will show you great, great deeds. So you can ask me of anything. And Moses says, I want to see your glory. So God shows him his glory. Well, part of it. But as he read that passage, I was almost in tears, because the morning of that day, as I was praying for Lebanon, the Spirit led me to read the same passage. And it was the first time when God confirmed it through the word. And then there were different other parts like that when God would, or times like that when God would just confirm through different people, through the word, same word, what the word that I read, and the people would just come to me and just share it with me. And so in October, I went to Lebanon again. We had our regional LDHR gathering, and it was a time when I met with their LDHR and with their national team leaders, and I was like, "Well, do you want me to come?" And I was actually worried. I wasn't sure if they would want me to be there for some reason, but they were so open. As they heard my story and the way God called me, they were like, we want you here. And for me, again, that was another confirmation that God really wants me there. So dreams, words of affirmation, divine contacts, just the need that God has shown me. And I think it was a season of just like falling in love with Lebanon. I really didn't want to leave the country. I was ready to move there in October, but I came back and I hit the season of waiting. And later I hit the season of wilderness. And it's the season again where God is stretching my faith, and it's out of my comfort zone. Again, I was tending my sheep in my country that I love, and it was hard for them to hear me go. But God is actually stretching my faith in this waiting, in this wilderness, through raising support. That was one of the things where God was really stretching my faith. When I saw the number that I needed for Lebanon, I was like, how am I going to get there? But it's interesting, as I looked at it even a week ago, I was already 90%, not at 90% of what I needed. And now actually 91, and I need to have 9% raised. And I know I can do it till September. When I was there in February of this year, again, going on a vision trip, God also, through just interesting situations, I got to meet girls from my country that live actually in Lebanon. Some of them just moved there recently, that already became my community. And God was like, I'm going to provide everything there. And so I remember back before this whole thing happened, thinking, I've gone through so much in my country with LDHR. It felt like a training camp. And I always ask this question, what are you training me for? And I even remembered one time, I was like, Lord, at the end of last year, I was thinking, Lord, please, not another conflict. And God would just speak to me and say, I can do that. But if there will not be any conflicts for you to solve, then you will not be prepared for what's coming. And so I knew that LEHR in my country was a training camp for me. But I never would have thought that God would call me out of my comfort zone to something new and to Lebanon. So as I continue to follow in faith, yeah, please pray for me. There's still a lot to, like to figure out. There's lots of logistics, but I can see even now how God, fulfills the dreams he has given me, affirming that through his word, giving me everything I will need there, and working with my fears and maybe with my unbelief and just growing my faith so I can go and just be a blessing to this country. So thank you so much for listening. And I hope the story was encouraging for you. And as you, like hear just little things or see a burning bush, I encourage you to just step into it with faith and allow God to show you and to lead you to the beautiful thing that he is holding in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Luda. That is really beautiful. And I love the unique ways that the Lord has spoken to you through the dreams and then seeing them fulfilled, just the exact same experience of climbing the hill in the dream and then it being a real physical place when you got there. I just think he's worked in amazing ways. And I love your attitude about being prepared to go there and serve and being willing to go through that process as well. So thanks so much for sharing with us. The question has to do with what takes more faith for you. You mentioned moving out of the comfort zone. Does it tend to be the waiting or the wilderness or taking action? Which one's harder for you?
I think the waiting has been the hardest for me. I think I hit that season sometime in December, and I knew I would not able to go there until April. They have their staff conference that we'll be able to attend. And February trip just happened to be like a personal vision trip, but just really having that passion, and knowing that I won't be able to come until September was the hardest for me. And just, I think what was hard too is that knowing what's going on in that region with, like October 7th event and the war in the Middle East and everything. And I was like, Lord, how are you going to do this? Now I just have to wait. And I don't even know. I think I remember asking him that question, like, will there be Lebanon in September, with everything that's been going on there? And I think just waiting on that, and just holding on to those promises of the Lord that I will take you there, I will lead you there, I want you there, has been the hardest for me. And I asked the Lord even, like, God, can you confirm that for me? And actually, the interesting thing for me is that He's been confirming about this call like every day, because I have doubts every day, and I struggle to follow every day. But He continues to affirm me through His word that what He promised and what He called me to, He will fulfill. He will fulfill His purposes for me for the season of life.
Thanks, Luda. Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to waiting being a very difficult time to and needing faith during that time. Thanks.
Yeah.
I want to introduce you now to Grace Belusi. And Grace has been on staff with Life Ministry in Kenya for 20 years. She's served in a lot of different roles. She's served in SLM. She's served with new staff training. I think that's how we met. And then she's served with leader strategies as well. And she's now currently serving as a missionary in Malawi with her husband, Robert, and their 3 awesome teenagers, Amani, Sifa, and Nima. Grace is now doing LDHR in Malawi, and she holds a master's degree in HR, so she brings great skills to that role. That degree is from Jomo Kenyatta University, and she loves reading and gardening and hosting people in her home. Grace juggles a lot of plates at a time, and I am so pleased that she squeezed in this time to be with us. So I know you're going to enjoy hearing Grace's story. Grace, the time is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Terry, for having us share our stories. I'm enjoying hearing from Lebanon, from India. That's awesome. So I'm going to talk about the story of moving from Nairobi to Nairobi, Kenya, to Malawi. And I was just thinking this morning as I thought about our time together that my life as I know it now did not exist about 6 years ago. If you told me about the things I've experienced in the last 5 or so years, I didn't ever think there were places like those, people like this. But when I think about it now, I think, what was I afraid of? You know, now that I know in hindsight, okay. But I remember in 2018 when actually our story begins with a position focused conversation in Nairobi. So we meet our team leader, and Robert and I, we were feeling as if we were ready for a new challenge. We were feeling as if there must be something more that God wants us to do. And it was our team leader that says, why don't you consider a missionary opportunity? And he listed a few opportunities within our area. And at first I thought like, no, you know, who does that? And even though I had lived in Nigeria when I did my new staff training, I'd never really thought that I would pack everything and move to a different country. And so I was telling my husband that it felt like a very Abrahamic move, you know, and I kept going back to Genesis 12, verse 1, where God just tells Abraham, I need you to go, just pack your stuff, your family, move. Go where? I don't know. I'll show you, you know. And so I kept thinking, how did Abraham break that news to Sarai at that point? Sarah, we are moving. Where are we going? I don't know. And then, you know, for me, I thought, at least I know where I'm moving. I'm going to Malawi. And thank God I'm in the technology era. So, you know, I went flat out on Google searching everything that I could about Malawi. But even though I had all this information, it did not keep me from worrying. Okay. And I said, I wished that Sarah kept a journal because I like reading. I'd have loved to hear what were her concerns, what were her fears, you know, when you see that they just moved, and indeed God blessed them in the new place. But I kept thinking, what were the questions going through my mind? For me, my biggest concerns were it's the small things, not the big things. So the big concerns were our community, our children had friends, and things were going well that way. My colleagues at the office, I had girls that I talked to, girls I had discipled that were now on staff. I also had older ladies that mentored me, the one you can just stop at the parking lot and say, this is going on, what do you think? And they'll just give you, wisdom. They'll pray with you right there. And so I felt as if I was just making a blind leap of faith. Our son at that time had asthma. He was asthmatic and he was using 2 inhalers. And someone had said that healthcare in Malawi was not at the same level as healthcare in Nairobi. So I said, what are we doing? We are bringing our son out to a place where we don't have a doctor, we don't have all these things. And I also worried about the small rhythms of my everyday life. Where I lived, I knew where to buy my groceries. I knew, you had some numbers on quick dial if you need something, but here I am leaving everyone. At that point, my mother was also sick. She had suffered from kidney failure for a long time. And so on the specific day that the HR from the region came in and said, hey, we need to talk about your possible move to Malawi, I received a call to say, you need to come home. Your mother isn't doing very well. And I remember as we were driving down towards my mom's house, the thought came in my mind that I pray that the Lord would heal my mother, but should he take her, maybe this will free me to consider living outside the country, because then I don't have to worry too much about her. And it's as if at that very moment, that's how at that point, or a few minutes around then, my mom passed on. And I mean, it was sad and all of that, but I also knew if I had moved when she was very sick, it would have been more difficult for me. And so we started to pack our stuff and sell some, give away a lot of things, and also see our partners. Yeah, just what Romila is saying, meet partners and work on your support. And we met so many people. There are sometimes I didn't cook food in our house for a week, because every day we have this appointment for lunch and for dinner. And so then we moved to Malawi. And the Lord has blessed us here. I look back and think, as I said earlier, what was I afraid of? The first thing the Lord did was, within our first week in Malawi, I asked my son, hey, my son, did you remember to use your inhaler? He had to use it several times. He said, oh, I didn't use it and I feel fine. And since then, he's not needed his inhaler. The ones we had brought from Kenya expired and we tossed them out. And he has been strong as a horse. So, the very thing that I feared, God had already figured it out. The fear I had of community, I have so many friends now, right opposite our house is a woman who's slightly close to my age, a little older, and we can talk and visit with each other. Our children are friends. We have a church community, a great pastor. We host cell group. And I feared about where I'd buy my groceries, but the house that we moved into in Malawi has a big garden at the back. And so now I don't even have to think about buying groceries. I simply walk to my garden and pick vegetables and pick tomatoes and fruits. And in a sense, it feels as if I'm living in the Garden of Eden in that sense, and we have a great staff team that have taught me so much just about the culture, about the food, and just ministry as well. And I have grown as a person. The person that I was 5 years ago when I came in is not who I am now. I have stretched, I've been stretched, I have grown, and I thank God for the opportunity. I thank God for the grace to just make that move and come, because I I have grown, I can say that, in my faith, in my ministry, in HR. Sometimes I call Terry and we talk about some of the things that I'm struggling with, or Adansi, and we talk about those things. And I really just thank God for the opportunity to serve in Malawi. Thank you.
That's such a fun story. You had sad things, and yet you saw God actually have that give you freedom. And the story about your son doing so well, that's a beautiful story of God's provision. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to serve even in another country. And I saw a lot of comments about yay for the position focused conversations and what God might do through them. So that's very exciting as well. Actually, one of the questions just said, what about the position focused conversation do you think stirred up that passion for you?
Okay. It was just the feeling that we are, should I say, stuck in a rut. It felt as if we've done all we could where we are now. What more exists? And we might even consider other opportunities outside crusade. Even our church is asking us to help in these areas. And so just the fact that we could be open about where we are at, and then that someone else could point us to other opportunities that we had not thought about. I think that was quite something. We felt cared for, and that that someone took it seriously and helped us connect with where the Lord was leading us in this season.
Thank you. Wow, that's really powerful. And that is exactly what we hope from position focused conversations, that it's an opportunity for someone to hear you and to maybe discern and to offer you other options. That's super exciting. That's exactly what we would hope from that time. Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing. Well, our last panelist needs almost no introduction at all, but I will give her one anyway. We are going to hear from Andrea Buczynski. She's been leading our LDHR global team for 20 years. And is right now in the middle of transitioning to the new adventures that God might have for her. And that's a really exciting time, and a little sort of very different as well. Andrea is a guru of wisdom and strategic thinking, but what I love most is that she uses all that brain energy also to really invest deeply in people and to help develop them and empower them. She remembers details about assessments and different things and experiences of each individual person, and then brings that into coaching conversations with them. She carefully and kindly and powerfully guides people all around the world into what God has for them. So I know you're going to enjoy hearing Andrea's story. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Terry. I'm just sitting here with my cup of coffee and literally feeling like we could be around a table somewhere. So thank you, Romila and Luda and Grace. I'll just join in saying, the Lord, when the Lord invites you to something, there's always, where you're coming from and where he's taking you to, and the element of the unknown. So I was thinking about when I started this role. I had just taken a new assignment on the global campus team, and it was the first time I was fully focused on leader development. And that assignment felt like a Christmas present. I just loved it. And I loved the challenge of thinking about, how are we going to do this as a global community of campus leaders? Like, what is needed? All my experiences in the US. And I like challenging situations, as you might have guessed by now. Well, at the end of one of our team meetings, Steve Sellers said, Andrea, could you stay for a minute? I have something to share with you. And, that always kind of gets your nerves up a little bit. And he just looked at me and he said, we're in conversations on the global leadership team right now. And I just want you to know your name is on a short list to take a full-time role in leader development that would be global. And I burst out laughing because there had been no women at that level. It was global, which was even bigger than what Global Campus would be. And you can tell I'm not a prophet, right? So about a month later, he says the same thing to me. And he says, Andrea, I want you to know that you are now the only person on that list. And this was, he goes, Steve Douglas will probably be calling you to set up a meeting. And I turned white, basically. I could not imagine, because I already knew that I had a meeting with Steve Douglas on my schedule for 3 days from then. And so I had a little bit of a time to think about it. And Steve and Cherry Fields and I had a great conversation over a dinner. And Steve explained what the need was, that if we were going to do movements everywhere, we needed leaders everywhere who could focus that way. And would I be willing to do it? So I asked him a couple questions, and in the course of that conversation, he happened to mention, he goes, we would really, really like you to do it. He goes, it was almost unanimous. He goes, but there's one VP who is opposed to having the role and who is opposed to you in it. And I wasn't quite expecting that. But I asked him who, and he told me, and I thought, well, I can imagine that anybody could have objections for a number of reasons. So the Lord began to work in my heart in a couple of different ways. I liked Luda's point, because I've always been big on asking the Lord for a word from the Word that I could count on when circumstances get really challenging. And so he gave me more than one, but I'm only going to share one this morning. And that was from Matthew chapter 14. I happened to be reading in my quiet time that morning. I was in that passage where Jesus is walking on the water to the disciples in the boat. And when they saw him, they were scared because they thought it was a ghost. And he identified himself. And then Peter, in a kind of testing mode, said, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water. And I read that, and it's like, if it's you, tell me to come. And that is my question. If it's you, tell me to come. And when I read the word come, it was like an invitation to me. And I had this image of being in the boat, one leg in, one leg out. And the impression, or what the Lord said to me at the time, was, you can stay in the boat if you want. He said, but if you get out of the boat, you'll know me in a way that you don't know me now. Who could resist that invitation, right? To know the Lord at a deeper level than you know him now. And I could find my heart almost immediately going, oh, of course, and I would have to say, like Peter, I saw wind and waves a bunch of times when I was crying out to the Lord to say, please save me, or at the very least, show me what to do, because I have no idea. And every single time, he just has been faithful. And I feel like I know him at such a deeper level in terms of being able to trust him with whatever obstacles come up, because he's not bound by anything. He doesn't have to work the same way twice, ever. He's so creative. And then he's so powerful that he can change things that look beyond changing to my eyes, right? I think one of the ways I've seen him differently is because of the exposure to our staff and their situations all around the world. Hearing these stories today is an example of that. Like you just see the provision of the Lord in the tiniest of details, things that are only personal to you or to Grace or to Luda or to Romila. And he shows up and you just go, he's on all our speed dial. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing. So I'm 20 years later and I'm looking back on some things that I never thought would change. And, to hear that position focused conversation is a very meaningful thing. To see it being engaged around the world is a beautiful thing. And I'm at the point of stepping out because in a prayer time when I was pouring my heart out to the Lord about the work that was yet to be done, he just said, yes, those are all true, but they don't have your name on it. And so I am fully committed to supporting and continuing to help coach, mentor, and develop next generation of leaders, because what God's called us to is such a privilege and so necessary for people to have the opportunity to hear him. I'll stop there.
Andrea, that's really beautiful. And I love how God has called us into roles and also called us out of roles and made it really clear. We're running out of time and I knew this would happen, but I have a few more things. So anyone who has to leave, feel free, but we're going to keep going for just a few minutes more. Andrea, there's a really interesting question that came through for you. And just how did you avoid bitterness in your heart when there was definitely some obstacle as far as a person not wanting you in the role?
I actually set up a conversation with that person. And he just looked at me in the first 5 minutes, big smile as wide as the sky. And he just goes, well, I'm opposed to you. And it's like, okay, how could that? It doesn't feel like that right this minute. Well, it turns out, he said, I don't think you can develop my people better than I can. And I sat there for a minute. He was a geographic leader. He knew all the people in his area. I just looked at him. I said, I agree with you. I don't think I can develop your people better than you can. I think that's your job, but I don't think that's my job. I said, I think my job is to help you do a good job at it and to hold you accountable to do it. And he looked at me and he nodded and he said, well, of course, you're a woman. And I said, yes, and there's nothing I can do about that. And he smiled and he goes, yes, but there's some places in my parts of the world where it'd be inappropriate for you to come. And I looked at him and I said, really? And he said, really? And I sat there and I thought, well, this work is not about me doing it. It is about getting the work done. So I have two guys, John Chenoweth and Barry Rush were on my team at the time. And I just looked at him and I said, I have men on my team. I'm assuming that you would be willing to work with them, that they could come. And he said, yes, that will work. And then he looked at me, he said, so where did you grow up? Tell me about your family. And that opposition, here's the thing, had I not investigated that, I could have assumed he was an opponent. As it turned out, he was an ally. 6 months later, I was in every part of his region. He made it happen. I came with people that were on his team, and he opened doors for me there so that I'd be accepted. I wasn't the VP at that point, it was the director, and he literally made it happen. For any other leaders that I had, that I knew had an objection, I would look for ways to make it work. In my mind, the role that I took was about the work and not necessarily about me in it. I could guide it without being front and center. So that's kind of how I approached it.
Thank you, Andrea. That's such a wise way to go about it. Little plug for Crucial Conversations going on there, and just really leaning in and getting to know just like we're doing right now, getting to know the people, having that conversation. And like you said, not making assumptions and finding out that actually there is very well an ally on the other side of the table. Thank you. I know we could go on for much longer. I feel like we scheduled this time way too short, but thank you, Romila, Luda, Grace, and Andrea, for sharing your stories with us. This time has been a gift. And I thank all of you who have joined us today. A few last minute comments. For one, you can access a whole bunch more stories, and some of them are done by video. These are posted on Workplace and Global, the Global LDHR group, or on the blog on ldhr.org. And the videos are on our global YouTube channel also. So if you have any questions about how to access those, just let me know. I recorded the webinar, and so this will be available as well later. You might want to share it with others who are going through some similar situations, who would be encouraged by the stories. And lastly, or more than any of those things, actually, I'd like to encourage you to take time to plan opportunities to tell stories with each other, maybe on your teams, maybe in some other small group. But this time has been so rich, and I think you can imagine how it would be if you were to do it with others in your own settings. It could have a really powerful impact on building your relationships with each other. So that is all we have for now. Again, I want to let people feel free to go, but I also want to invite Luda to share her poem for anyone who would like to stay. And I'm also going to ask her to send it to me so I can add it to her story. Her post is on the blog on ldhr.org. So if you do have to leave, you might still be able to read it there. So let's end with this, Luda, and thanks for everyone for joining us today.
I wrote it when I was in Lebanon in February, just walking along the shore and then just processing how God had called me and everything that was going on inside of me. So I hope you can just kind of feel it and just, enjoy it as well. So to Lebanon. You invaded my life with compassion, exploding my soul with your pain, calling out with a need so insane, overflowing my heart with passion. Your beauty was so captivating, shining through with unbreakable hope, joy of life that can never be lost, ever growing with strength so amazing. You became my most happy place. Oh, how could I deny this love story? As I hear your voice that keeps calling, back to you I will find my way. So allow me to wipe all your tears and to cover your wounds with myrrh. Let me dry away every storm, lifting up all your pain and fears. For I know your revival is near, bringing back those glorious days, breaking forth as the bright sun rays. Peace and freedom will surely appear.
Oh my gosh, Luda, that just brings tears to my eye. That was beautiful.
I know, me too.
Thank you.
I try not to cry. Yeah, every time it does. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a love story. I can't help it. But yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you.
Of course. Let's praise the Lord together for just the beautiful stories and the love story He's written in each of our lives. Thank you all again for being here and for joining us. And I do hope that you will replicate this wherever you are and have many more opportunities to thank the Lord for His work in our lives.